Good day, ma'am. I am Daguplo of Thea Grace Cases, OM2B, on Chapter 4, Social, Political, Economic, and Cultural Issues in Philippine History. Today, I'm going to discuss my three topics report. The constitutions of the Philippines. There have been four constitutions that have effectively governed the country. First is the 1935, the Commonwealth Constitution. Second is the 1973 Constitution. Third, the 1986 Freedom Constitution. Fourth, 1987 Constitution are currently in effect, which serves as the supreme law of the Republic of the Philippines. Earlier attempts at constitution making Filipinos attempted to create their own constitutions in their struggles to break from form of colonial yoke. An earlier attempt at constitutions making in the Philippines occurred in 1877 with the Constitution of Biak na Bato, Provisional Constitution. The Philippine Republic among the Philippine Revolution was promulgated by the Philippine Revolutionary Government on November 1, 1897. Borrowed from Cuba, it was initially written in Spanish by Isabelo Artaco and Felix Ferrer and later translated into Tagalog. The Constitution of Biak na Bato established three case organs of government. First is the Supreme Council, which vested the power of the Republic, headed by the President of four department secretaries: Interior, Foreign Affairs, Treasury, and War. Second is the Consejo Supremo de Gracia y Justicia, or Supreme and Council of Grace and Justice, which is given the authority to make decisions and affirm or disprove the sentences tendered by other courts and to dictate rules for the administration of justice. Third is the Asamblea de Representantes, or Assembly of Representatives, which used to be conveyed after a revolution to create a new constitution and to elect a new council of government and representatives of people. However, the constitution of Biak na Bato was never fully implemented due to the lighting of the Pact of Biak na Bato between the Spanish and the Philippine Revolutionary Army. Next is the primary source, the preamble of Biak na Bato Constitution. Philippine Republic has been the end and soft by the revolution in the existing war, began on the 24th of August in 1896, and therefore it is named and by the power delegated by Filipino people interpreting faithfully their desires and ambitions with the representatives of the revolution in a meeting at Biak na Bato on November 1, 1897. So, the primary source, the preamble Biak na Bato constitutions express the desire and the separation of the Philippines from the Spanish monarchy and the formation or the independent states with its own government called the Philippine Republic. And unanimously adopted the following articles for the constitution of the state. So the constitutions of Biak na Bato may not have been fully implemented, but it paved the way for the future attempts at constitutions making in the constitution is an evolution of the Philippine Constitution is reflection of the Philippines' struggles for independence and democracy. Second topic which is the 1899 Malulus Constitution. In 1899, the Malulus Constitution was crafted as a pivotal document in the history of the Philippines, the, reflecting the aspirations of the Philippine people for self-governance and independence. So, as you can see, this first is signing of the truce and exile of the Filipino Revolution leaders, defeat of the Spanish in the Battle of Manila Bay on May 1, 1898, return of the Aguinaldo and formation of the First Philippine Republic. After the signing of a truce, our Filipino revolutionary leaders accepted payment from Spain and went into exile in Hong Kong. With the defeat of the Spanish by the Americans in the Battle of Manila Bay on May 1, 1898, Aguinaldo was transported back to the Philippines by the United States Navy. The reformed Philippines revolutionary forces returned to Aguinaldo's control, leading to the issuance of the Philippine Declaration of Independence on June 12, 1898, and the establishment of the First Philippine Republic. The Malolos Congress. The Malolos Congress, composed of a wealthy and educated men, was elected on September 17, 1898. On November 29, 1898, the Congress approved the document titled Political Constitution of 1898, which was promulgated by Aguinaldo on January 12, 1899. This constitution, written in Spanish with influences drawn the various sources such as the Spanish Constitution of 1812 and charters of other countries, the Belgium, Mexico, Brazil, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and France. Next is the primary source, the Preamble of Political Constitution of 1899. Emphasizes on establishing justice, common defense, general welfare, and liberty, and acknowledgement of aid from the sovereign legislator of the universe. The Constitution challenged colonial authorities by reverting sovereignty to the people, delegating governmental functions to civil servants while retaining actual sovereignty. Sovereignty and popular sovereignty. Retroversion of sovereignty to the people as a challenge to Spanish colonial authorities, delegating of governmental functions while retaining actual sovereignty, and also here the protection of natural rights and popular sovereign entitled. Also, they have a freedom and equality. So, they have a recognition of freedom and equality of all beliefs. Separation of church and states as a reaction to the dominance of friars in Spanish government. The Constitution delegated the structure of the government, outlining a popular representatives system with three distinct branches. You have a legislative, executive, and judicial powers. The, the, the legislative power was vested in an unicameral body known as the Assembly of Representatives, with members elected for 4-year term. Noteworthy provisions included the right to introduce bill, census officials, and initiate the impeachment proceedings against key government figures. So the powers of the Assembly. Introduction of bills. Or members of the Assembly, selecting of officers, right of censure, and interpellations of impeachment power. Executive power, vesting of executive power in the President, election by a Constituent Assembly, 4-year term without re-election. Executive authority was bestowed upon the President, elected by a Constituent Assembly for non-renewable four-year term. In, in the absence of a Vice President, provision were made for the selection of a new President by the Constituent Assembly in a case of vacancy. Non-enforcement and transfer sovereignty. For non-enforcement of the Malolos, they have a constitution due to the ongoing war, also the transfer of sovereignty to the United States through the Treaty of Paris on December 10, 1898. So despite the comprehensive framework and visionary principles, the 1899 Malolos Constitution never saw enforcement due to the ongoing conflict and the transfer of sovereignty from Spain to the United States as per the Treaty of Paris. Nevertheless, the Constitution stands as a testament to the unwavering spirit of the Filipino people in their quest for self-determination and democratic governance amidst tumultuous times. Third is the third topic. Third topic, the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. Following the period of American colonization in the Philippines, which began after the Treaty of Paris, and the country underwent significant governance changes. Initially, under military rule from 1898 to 1901, a shift civil government occurred leading to the establishment of legislative bodies such as the Philippine Assembly. Key legislative milestones include the Philippine Organic Act of 1902, which introduced a bicameral legislation or legislature comprising the Philippine Commission and Philippine Assembly. This act provided a framework for governance and including provisions such as a bill rights for Filipinos. The Philippine Organic Act of 1902 and the Autonomy Act 1916 provided for the creation of a popularly elected Philippine Assembly and a Senate composed of elected Filipino voters. So, the Jones Law of 1916 further restructured the Philippine government, replacing the Philippine Commission with an elected Senate, or marking a significant step towards a more representative system. The, in, the intention of grant independence to the Philippines was explicitly stated in this law, setting the stage for the development, stage for future developments. Tidings-McDuffie Act in 1934, also known as the Philippine Independent Act. The Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934 provided for the establishment of a formal constitution by a constitutional convention. Efforts towards independence culminated in the passage of the Tidings-McDuffie Act in 1934, also known as the Philippine Independence Act. This legislation paved a way for the drafting of formal constitution by a constitutional convention. Also, Claro M. Recto was elected as the president of this convention, which convened in July 1934 to lay the groundwork for self-convenience. Primary sources. The preamble of 1935 Commonwealth Constitutions expresses the ideals of the Filipino people in establishing a government that embodies justice, liberty, and democracy. So the resulting Commonwealth Constitution of the Philippines is the aspiration of the Filipino people, or rather self-rule, justice, liberty, democracy, initially establishing a unicameral National Assembly. The Constitution was later amended in 1940 to create a bicameral Congress comprising a Senate and House of Representatives. Furthermore, the Constitution of introduced provisions for the election of a president and vice president to 4-year terms with one reflection allowed. Suffrage rights, originally granted to male citizens above the age of 21, were later extended to include women. Influences of the Constitution. The dominant influence in the Constitution was American, but it is also shows traces of the Malolos Constitution, the German, Spanish, or Mexican constitutions of several South American countries, and the unwritten English Constitution. Influenced by the various constitutional frameworks, including American Malolos, German, Spanish, Mexican, and South American models. The 1935 constitutions reflected a blend of diverse legal influences. So, ultimately, the constitutions was ratified by us President Franklin D. Roosevelt in March 1935, leading to the elevation of Manuel L. Quezon as the of I mean, first President of the Commonwealth in September 1935. Overall, the Constitution aimed to establish a government that embodied in ideals of the Filipino people, promoted the general welfare, and ensured justice, liberty, and democracy. It serves as a crucial stepping stone towards the eventual independence of the Philippines. So, that's all for today for my 3 topics report.
Hello everyone. Today I will report my assigned topic which is the chapter 4 and the social, political, economic and cultural issues in Philippine history evolution of Philippine Constitution. So first, here are contents. First is 1973 constitutional authoritarianism. Second is 1987 constitution after martial law. The third is attempts to amend or change the 1987 constitution. So first, let's discuss first the 1973 constitutional authoritarianism. The term 1973 constitutional authoritarianism refers to the political climate in the Philippines under the leadership of President Ferdinand Marcos. This period is marked by the adoption of the 1973 Constitution, which significantly empowered the executive branch and enabled Marcos to extend his role. So, the term 1973 constitutional authoritarianism refers to the period in the Philippines under the rule of President Ferdinand Marcos, marked by the implementation of the 1973 Constitution. So, this constitution was a result of a constitutional convention that was allegedly hijacked by Marcos forces. So the 1973 Constitution established a unique unicameral legislature, the Batasang Pambansa, and granted Marcos sweeping powers to amend the Constitution and declared martial law. So this period was characterized by authoritarian rule, with Marcos consolidating power and suppressing. Next is, the ideology underlying this period was referred to as constitutional authoritarianism. So this concept was one of the rationalizations Marcos used to declare martial law. It was linked with the ideology of Bagong Lipunan or New Society, which was a part of Marcos' rhetoric during his rule. So the 1973 Constitution was in effect until the people Power Revolution in 1986, which led to the drafting and implementation of the 1987 Constitution. Next is the 1987 Constitution after martial law. The 1987 Constitution of the Philippines, also known as the Constitution after martial law, was enacted after the People Power Revolution in 1986, which ended the dictatorship of President Ferdinand Marcos. It was under the leadership of President Corazon Aquino that the 1987 Constitution was drafted and ratified. President Aquino's government had three options regarding the Constitution: revert to the 1935 Constitution, retain the 1973 Constitution, and be granted the power to make reforms or start anew and break away from the dictatorship. Ultimately, the decision was made to draft a new constitution that would reflect the aspirations of the Filipino people for more democratic society. So, the 1987 Constitution of the Philippines was enacted after the end of the martial law period under the President Ferdinand Marcos. So this constitution was created in response to both domestic and international pressure. Reading to snap elections held on February 7, 1986. So the government had three options regarding the constitution: revert to the 1935 constitution, retain the existing one, or draft a new one. So the decision was to draft a new constitution, which is the 1987 constitution we know that day. So the overthrow of the martial law regime was led by moderate middle forces with an ideology that was not basically against foreign domination, nor did it champion the liberation of power classes. Today, the 1987 Constitution safeguards our institutions from a repeat of Marcos' martial law regime. The Supreme Court is empowered to review all official acts to determine if there has been grave abuse of discretion. Congress cannot be padlocked. So in the new constitution, in the case of invasion of or rebellion, when public safety requires it, the president may be suspend the privilege of the writ or habeas corpus or place the Philippines or any part of thereof under martial law, but only for a period not exceeding 60 days. However, some argue that the 1987 Constitution is authoritarian, not by design, but by interpretation. So, it is seen as authoritarian because rather than divide the powers of government to avoid concentration of their powers in any one branch, the Constitution, as interpreted today, concentrates power in the executive branch. So next is the attempts to amend or change the 1987 Constitution. The 1987 Constitution provided for three methods by which the Constitution can be amended or requiring ratification by a majority vote in national referendum. These methods were Constituent Assembly, Constitutional Convention, and People's Initiative. Using these modes were efforts to amend or change the 1987 Constitution, starting with the presidency of Fidel V. Ramos. First attempt. The first attempt was in 1995 when the Secretary of National Security Council, Jose Almonte, drafted a constitution. But it was exposed to a media and it never prospered. So the second effort happened in 1997 when a group called PERMA hoped to gather signatures from voters to change the constitution through People's Initiative. So many are against this, including Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. Miriam Defensor, who brought the issue to court and won, with Supreme Court judging that a People's Initiative cannot push through without enabling law. So that's all. Thank you.